Start recording. All right. So the question I get is, how did I get into yoga? And I'm just gonna go down through it as fast as I can. I do have a few notes prepared here. They're in the comments section, along with a couple links. Um, if so, I was introduced to yoga from P90X. Actually, if you don't know what P90X is, you can go look it up. It's a CrossFit. It's probably, some people call it the original CrossFit. And I was really into health and stuff and trying to get back into shape, having worked for all my life as a techie, and I got kind of out of shape. I was a triathlete in my 20s and 30s, and then work and family happened. I got out of shape, started in P90X, um, and this was like well before my divorce, in about 2008. I was starting to P90X had this yoga routine that you did on your off days, right? But it was hard. But I really liked the mental focus of it. It was really, it was the first time I actually gave attention to my breathing, um, and my mind and things like that. I'd always been a big, CrossFit kind of guy, and so yeah, it just really affected me. But I did it mostly as part of P90X. I didn't really think much about it until after the divorce. I got divorced actually. I got divorced. I left a Mormon church. It was really stressful. Lost a lot of my um, spiritual basis, and my sanity. Actually, it felt like I was losing my sanity a lot because so many things were uh, wrong in my life, and so uh, I started just I started paddleboarding. I started getting healthy again, and working out again. And to be honest, to confess, I researched some things and found out that women actually like good abs, and so I started doing sit-ups every day. I was like, well, what are some of the things that like really help? Uh, and I was intrigued because I was actually, at the time, I was teaching paddleboarding to other people, mostly rich people, and I was mentoring some people on how to do stand-up paddleboarding on Lake Norman when this couple showed up that were from Charlotte. They were very, liberal and tattooed and everything. And the guy was doing yoga on a paddleboard, and I was like, whoa. I mean, it was really cool. I was like, this is something that I could get into. Because up to that point, other than the P90X, I thought that yoga was just something that late girls did. Obviously, there were guys, and I think that's the first time I turned around. I thought, no, guys can do this too. It turns out that, guys started it. That yoga was Ashtanga yoga anyway. It was invented for, you know, teenage boys to settle them down for the Maharaja, but that's another story. And so I gave it another shot because we were actually at a stand-up meetup. I ran a stand-up paddleboard meetup that I started with my friend Ken and a number of other people, and we had a conversation about yoga on a paddleboard because we had a lot of people asking about it, particularly women, but not only. And so we did the research on yoga on a paddleboard, and uh, I said, okay, fine, I'm going to do this. I was going to Gold's Gym at the time, um, and I actually took a yoga class in a kickboxing studio from this amazing woman. I forget her name, and her daughter, who transformed this gym, kickboxing studio into this really zen space. They had candles, they had the right music and scents, and they lowered the lights, and we did everything. And I was like, oh my god! And you got to understand, I was divorced, I was frustrated, I was not getting much physical contact, and they gave I will never forget, they gave me a scalp massage while I was there, and I was like, okay, I was hooked. And so I went home and I started obsessively researching yoga of any form that I could find. I wanted to find the one true yoga. That's just how I was. And there's not really a one true yoga. Yoga is a personal thing. It's a personal practice. It's not even really about physical fitness, and we'll talk about that later. But in the process, I ended up settling on Ashtanga yoga, which is kind of a dumb name because all yoga is Ashtanga, but Ashtanga just means eight limbs. And I liked it because it was like, was do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. And people who did it tended to be really healthy. It claimed to be the original yoga. And and there was a lot of material on it, including some material from a guy named Dave Swenson, which I'll show you about in another video, who was a Texan who had gotten into it because his brother was into it, and just very down home kind of Southern guy, but he was doing yoga, and he just that really kind of it really kind of made me think about it. It's like this is what it's about, and he really brought it home, and we'll talk a lot about that another time. So at that point, daily Ashtanga became like an integral part of my life. It was something that I did. I counted on every morning. I changed a lot about my life at the time. I changed my habits. I became vegan at the time. I'm not now. I don't think you need to be vegan to be a good Ashtangi, but I just changed a lot of things about my life, and it was really able. It really helped me to calm down and to settle down and to deal with the anger that I had about having been sort of taken advantage of by the Mormon Church and stuff. And it really centered me. I really loved it, and I hadn't really met anybody who did Ashtanga. Ashtanga is a personal practice that you do at home first and foremost, and so I wasn't really into the whole yoga class thing other than that one. And occasionally I would go there. I would still go there, and I would practice. It was good because I was actually getting really good at yoga because I did it every day, in terms of the balance poses and things like that. So when I would come back, she would notice. She goes, "I could see you're making a lot of progress," and because I had a personal practice, and that's what I really liked about Ashtanga is it was a daily thing. I was dating random people during that time. All that's another tons of other stories we'll talk about. But eventually I met Doris. I won't get into the how of that. Um, and it was actually at a yoga rave that we attended together that there's actually a video of now. And I'm going to pull that up really quick. Um, so it was actually at a yoga rave. This is me, and that's Doris. Oh, whoops. You didn't see that. Here, let me switch. So let me rewind a little bit. So this has some really great sound and stuff, but I think it'll get me demonetized. So that's me, and that's my wife Doris, and it was actually in this exact moment, this craziest. I'm not exaggerating. They caught the moment on film when I looked under my arm over at my wife because this rave had just started and I decided in that moment this is the woman I wanted to be with forever, and I was going to make it happen somehow. Because I had already arrived at a certain form of spirituality and health, and so had she, and we had found each other, and we were like, hey, let's go do this yoga run rave, and we started going on yoga dates together, and we would go to Trader Joe's and buy food, and then I would buy my food, and she would buy her food, and it just was fantastic. And that's Daniel, actually. That's Daniel is one of our favorite yoga instructors from Yoga One. So that's me right there. And when I had hair, and that's Doris. You missed Trader Joe's. And this was this really amazing, fun, benefit. This is Baptiste yoga. It's not Ashtanga. But I'm not particularly a fan of Baron Baptiste, but we can talk about that another time. So this is what a yoga rave looks like. It's a big old party with everybody yogaing out, it's spectacular, by the way. If you ever get a chance to go to a yoga rave, it's way better than going to like, a club or something, because it's just so real, and it's so much better. Anyway, so Doris and I, we eventually got married, and it was, and we did our practices together independently. We don't actually, you think, being married, we would do the yoga next to each other. And we've learned a lot that yoga is a very personal thing. And sometimes we do it together. We used to do it at the War Memorial together, which I made another video about. But outside, sometimes doing yoga outside is really fun. And so we fast forward, and Doris was kind of trying to find her way. She had been working in retail at Target, but she'd been an artist all her life. It's kind of funny to look back now because now she's got pieces in the biggest museum in Charlotte, and invites to all kinds of things. And it started out with she started doing yoga, and she actually went and got yoga training at Asheville Yoga Center, which is we call it the mothership. It's just like this amazing place. And she then started teaching yoga. She met a number of people, including art professors from Davidson College, which are now her best friends, and um, and just a bunch of things. It just opened up all of these opportunities for her. Um, it's crazy because of all the things that came from it. She started doing art again, and it just exploded from there. And it started with her returning to yoga and doing yoga as a regular practice. Uh, it's a 30-day training that she went to, and she's certified and she does all that. So, and then, fast forward a couple of years after that, I would run Skill Stack, and I'd been doing my own yoga, trying to keep up in the mornings. I actually ran the Mysore practice for the meditation room in Davidson. I asked them, I called them up and said, hey, can I use your space during the winter because it's really cold? I can't do yoga outside at the memorial. Can I use your space? And they said, yeah. And they said they gave me a key in exchange for the fact that I would clean the room and I would be there for Mysore. Mysore practice is a Ashtanga tradition where you come together and you do yoga next to each other. And if there's a teacher at all they do is go around the room to each of you and help you one on one, which I really like. If you know me and you know about um, if you know me and you know what it means to be um, to be an autodidact and to learn on your own and to be mentored and that whole mentor guru kind of mentality, which I think is the true way to learn anything, then you know that I just really responded to the whole Mysore idea. So I ran this Mysore space. It turns out that only two or three people came at any time, and most of the time it was my wife, me, and Liz, who was a dancer and an Ashtangi who practiced in New York, and we all became really good friends and stuff. But I also started training young people, particularly young boys, in Ashtanga because those are the ones that came to SkillStack. So I started having yoga classes for my tech people at SkillStack. My SkillStack was the private mentor community that I created. Um, and there were a lot of nerds and people there. So I said, hey, let's do this. And we had about 8 to 10 people. Hey, Dennis, we had about 8 to 10 people um, from the ages of 10 to 16 doing yoga, and I ran that at the meditation center for a while, which was just they had a really great space, and I really loved that. I really did love that. Eventually, I had to give it up because the time constraints of work. I had to give up Ashtanga. Actually, I had to give it up in the morning. It was just too much. I was running my own business, and I was just so burned out that I could not do this. My wife and I at the time were also sleeping. I kid you not, we were sleeping in cots in the main classroom space of our townhome because we had, given the upstairs uh, mid-level floors to my son, who's now in Canada, who lived with us for a while he was leaving the Mormon Church himself. It turns out that he was, I don't know how much I should say, but it turns out he was gay and wanted to do a different thing, go a different path. And he was able to stay in our home. But that meant that my wife and I had to figure something out while he stayed with us. And that meant sleeping on cots, literally, and it was tough because I was getting up at like 6 a.m. to do Ashtanga yoga. And then I would have to put my cot away in the closet. And then we did it every day for like a year or so. I mean, we probably put the time in our practice. I don't regret any of it, but it was really, really hard, and that took its toll. And eventually, I stopped doing yoga, um, which is ironic because I probably needed it more than ever at the time. So it took a few years after that. I was on and off with yoga and bicycling and adventure cycling and running, and I've always run. That's something I always do. I think running is actually a form of yoga because if you do it right with regular breathing, it's yoga in the true sense, not yoga in asana like poses and stuff. So that was it. I gave it up for a long time. In fact, we've gone through a lot of turmoil here over the last couple of years, and and to tell you the truth, it was last week. Last week on Monday was the first day that I started to a regular Ashtanga practice again in the morning. And you can see that I have VODs of me doing yoga every day now. If you want to join me at 9 a.m. every day Eastern time, I am doing yoga. I'm doing Mysore's practice, so I'm just doing my yoga and breathing, and occasionally I'll say something, but most of the time I don't. You can put on your own music and you can come join us. So that's how I got into yoga. Everybody comes to yoga in a different way. um, a rather famous Ashtangi. I forget her name again. Kiko McGregor. She has a saying. She got into yoga because she wanted to do badass handstands, and she says all the time. She goes, it doesn't matter what brings you to yoga as long as you show up, and you end up finding all of the other great things that come from it besides just the physical benefits. And those are things that we're going to talk about. But that's why I got into it. That's how I got into it. Everybody's got a different story. My wife's story, really quickly, is that after the divorce, she was looking for a way to find strength and confidence again. And it was actually her climbing instructor at her gym. She was a big climber, who said, you need to join my yoga class. And she did. And she just found herself getting very powerful and building up a bunch of power and confidence. And ultimately, that's what led to her to be able to leave a sort of abusive situation, because she was building up her own strength. And so everybody comes to yoga in a different way. I think the thing about yoga that's important is that it's so personal. Don't let, going to a yoga class is not the same as building a personal yoga practice. They're totally different. One of them's kind of a gym thing. It's more like Zumba than yoga. So just keep that in mind. Yoga is a very personal exploration. It's a personal practice, and that's what it was for me. It's what it was for my wife, and that's what I think it'll be for you if you give it a chance. So that's why I'm making this video. That's all. Bye.